and welcome back to episode 77 of the Gentle Business Revolution podcast, the show where we talk about marketing your business by disrupting the current marketing paradigm and changing it to a gentler approach, one that's based on empathy and kindness. As always, I'm Sarah Znakroche, I'm the host here, and you know that you're in the right place if you are a heart-centered entrepreneur or change maker who is looking for a different and a better way to market your business. Or you might also be a marketing impact pioneer, so someone who's working in a marketing department for an organization who does business for good. Today is day 4 of our special week here on the Gentle Business Revolution podcast, a week to celebrate kindness. And it's also the official worldwide Random Acts of Kindness week. As you know, if you've been listening these past 3 days, I invited different people whom I see as representatives of kindness in business and talk to them how they see the role of kindness in business and marketing. These episodes are sponsored by the Gentle Marketing Revolution book, my book, that's now available for sale on Amazon, and you can get it either via my site, thegentlemarketingrevolution.com/book, or directly on Amazon. Just type in the Gentle Marketing Revolution. So today, I'm joined by my friend Andy Mort, who is a songwriter and slow coach for Gentle Rebels. His title really says it all, why we resonate so much. I also have Andy to thank for first making me aware of the word gentle. I heard it first on his Gentle Rebel podcast, and it really stayed with me. Gentle rebels and gentle marketers and gentle revolutions really go hand in hand. So let me tell you a bit more about Andy. Andy Mort is a UK-based creativity slow coach, songwriter, and podcaster. He's the founder of thehaven.co, a membership community dedicated to support and encourage gentle rebels, creative introverts, and sensitive types to find and share their voices with the world. He produces the Gentle Rebel podcast, a monthly show dedicated to helping people unleash their creativity and find the courage to make their own quiet stand for what truly matters in life to them. He has produced music under the name Atlam Shima since 2005 and is currently creating as part of 3-piece electronic band Early Bird. I wanted to talk to Andy about a wonderful blog post he wrote quite a while ago with the title, Gentleness is Strength, the 7 Habits of Highly Gentle People. So that's kind of our guideline for our conversation, but as you can or you will be able to tell, we take that and then go down all kinds of rabbit holes. But without further ado, I want to introduce you to Andy. So here we go. Hi, Andy. So good to speak to you.
Yeah. Hi. Happy New Year, Sarah. Really good to be with you.
Thank you. So as you know, this is kind of part of the Random Acts of Kindness week that I'm hosting on the Gentle Business Revolution podcast. And as I just told you offline, I was just like looking around on the web to see who was talking about gentleness. And then your post came up. I'm like, oh, I know Andy. So let's have him on and talk about this idea of gentleness is strength, because that was the topic of your blog post that, as we just mentioned, you wrote like 5 years ago, which seems like ages and ages ago.
Yeah. I'm so glad that you got in touch about that, because it's one of those blog posts that was a slow burner when I first published it, and then people started coming to it and really resonating with it. And this idea of gentleness just kind of, being something that people struggle with, but also resonate with was quite cool.
Yeah. And it's interesting because I get the same kind of feedback about the gentle marketing revolution, right? It's like, I don't get it. What do you mean by gentle? How does that fit into marketing? And so I guess that can be part of our conversation here as well. But I want to start reading the quote that you have on that blog post, and we'll link to that in the show notes so people can check it out. but it starts with a quote from Mr. Rogers that goes like this: most of us, I believe, admire strength. It's something we tend to respect in others, desire for ourselves, and wish for our children. Sometimes, though, I wonder if we confuse strength and other words like aggression and even violence. Real strength is neither male nor female, but it's quite simply one of the fine characteristics that any human being can possess. Mr. Rogers. I love that quote so much, and it really resonates with me that he's saying it's neither male or female, because I think that might be one of the confusions as well. When we hear gentle, a lot of people immediately think of, oh, that's a woman's thing. Is that something that came up as well in your conversations?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it is one of those words that kind of evokes sort of a certain image in people's heads, and that, you kind of asked me before about the sort of association with weakness.
Right.
And if you search for gentle, like a kind of definition of gentle, words like kind of mild-mannered, tender, soft, like easy, kindness, those kinds of things come up, which, yeah, can be kind of associated with more kind of feminine traits, I suppose. And so people, I think, carry an association with gentle, but definitely like in the kind of context of strength and, that Mr. Rogers quote, which, I absolutely love. It's kind of like actually gentle strength's true strength. And it's like just the strength of life itself. It's like I often kind of think of trees as a great metaphor for the way that we are as humans, and like the kind of rooting and the growth and the reinforcement of branches as kind of winds kind of batter them and stuff like that. And strength's just something that grows over time. And that kind of idea of aggression and violence. And I think the kind of that masculine idea of strength as a physical thing, as a almost a domination thing, trying to like control parts of our environment and stuff like that, is kind of the opposite of how I think of gentle strength, which is, you think of the branch is able to flex, it adapts, it is kind of like it bows to the kind of forces around it. The wind kind of moves it, but in so doing, it develops tension wood, which is how it then strengthens itself for kind of future winds, future storms and stuff. So yeah, I'll tell you, it's a whole mix.
I love that image of the tree, because what I also kind of shared in the book is that gentleness or gentle marketers are not, we're not pushovers. And by pushover, I see the tree again, because we're firmly rooted in the ground, and we have our set of beliefs and values, and we're not gonna let ourselves be convinced just because we're gentle and nice, right?
Yeah.
And so this idea of the tree and solidness and confidence probably also comes up. Yeah, it really resonates with me as well.
Yeah, and like coming back to those kind of words like the mild-mannered and the tender, and like I think they're contextual. Like if they lead us away from ourselves, as you're saying, like that, it can be a problem. But if we have that solid understanding of our values and our boundaries, and we're rooted in something much bigger, in a vision that stretches deeper, then those things are strengths. They're not like the pushover, the being a doormat that gets walked all over, and those kinds of associations that you might have with gentleness and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, exactly. You also say in the post that you believe that gentleness is an act of rebellion. Can you give us a bit more info on that? Why you thought of it that way?
Yeah, well, I think it probably it's sort of similar to, what we've already been talking about, the kind of, I suppose, the common assumptions that around strength and and in the context of marketing as well, like this, you've got to constantly be hustling and fighting and grabbing and go for it, like all this stuff that's very action orientated. And actually gentleness as an act of rebellion is an act, it goes against those common messages that we hear, right, that kind of, and those messages that lead us away from ourselves as well. And, you know, I always think of the gentle rebel not as, you know, it's kind of a playful term, and it sounds a bit like, how can you have a gentle rebel? Because like the rebel in your mind is the person that goes against the status quo and, you know, is tearing things up and all that sort of stuff. But actually the gentle rebel is not about dominating. It's not about tearing things down for the sake of it or because they resent things. They oppose ways of thinking and systems and assumptions that we commonly hold that fail the people that are expected to kind of unnaturally fit into those things. And so gentleness is rebellion because it kind of goes against what's expected, but goes towards what is intuitive, what is natural at the heart of us, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I play with the image of the sheep because I'm telling my gentle marketers they're not sheep. They're, you know, going against the mainstream. They're not just following guru marketing advice that doesn't feel good often. And so, yeah, that again, obviously for listeners who might not notice, but the first time I came across this idea of, you know, gentle revolution, gentle rebel was obviously on your podcast, and it kind of stuck with me. And I'm like, yeah, that's exactly how I feel about this. And so the gentle marketing revolution is just a play of words coming, you know, also from your gentle rebels and all of that. So
yeah, and I love that. I love the fact that you've used it in this marketing context as well, because it just feels so resonant to me, and as a thing that kind of emerges from within, and it's this kind of whole way of being and approaching business. And it's kind of not about obviously forcing people to be gentle. And you talk about the kind of gurus and the those common assumptions that we are sort of encouraged to follow around marketing, and like, if you want to succeed, you've got to follow this model or do this. And actually, you know, the people might come to the gentle marketing revolution. All right, I'll try that. I'll go for gentleness as a way to succeed in the market. It's like it's a rebellion against that way of thinking itself as well. It's like if you don't get it, then it's not going to be something that you can kind of resonate with or use, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes me think of the kind of the authentic marketing hype thing where it's like, oh, you got to be authentic now. Okay, let me learn how to be authentic and let me learn how to use vulnerability to sell more. And so, yeah, completely not that. It is, let's face it, it's a bit of work because you need to actually allow yourself to go inwards, like you said, and really figure out, well, who you really are. And that's how the gentleness also comes out again, I think, because maybe we've been trained a bit to be tough. At least that's how I felt like I was done being gentle. I was like, okay, I'm going to be tough now because that's what's required in this market. And it just didn't work for me.
Yeah, that's right. It's a way of being rather than a set of things to do as well, which is where you can't capture it in a model,
right?
Particularly because it is, you could do the same thing in a gentle way and in a really tough way, and you'd, like one thing could be a gentle, like it could have that spirit of gentleness in it, and you'd feel that and you'd see that and you'd know it intuitively if you're sort of engaging with it, I think.
It is sometimes really challenging to me to explain the differences because of what you just said. It's like, it doesn't matter what you do, it's how you do it. If you feel like using Facebook ads is a good thing for your business and you feel aligned with that, then go ahead and do that. what matters is how you're going to do it, and the words you're using. Don't use the words in the templates that the guru has sold you in his program, because then you just sound like everyone else, and most likely you're going to be using scarcity models and manipulation. Switch it around and market from within. That's really the key here.
Yeah, totally.
So let's talk about these 7 habits of highly gentle people. That was the title of your blog post, which I loved. So can you walk us through them and what they are, and maybe also think of this business marketing context when you talk about them?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, when I wrote it first, I think the end of 2014, around 2015, and it was in the context of embracing a gentle core and avoiding the pitfalls of mindless aggression and violence in any given situation. So it was kind of, I can't remember exactly what I was probably responding to something that was going on in my life at the time, but
right.
It was, I can't remember exactly what that was. But the first one was just remaining conscious of your feelings. So observing kind of what your natural inner emotional reaction to the thing, and just letting that occur without judging it, without, trying to push it away. It's just this kind of objective noticing kind of period with it. And in a marketing business context, like, you can do this, I think, with how you feel about either doing a certain thing, so approaching something in your business in a certain way, or being marketed to as well by somebody else in a particular way. Like, what's your initial emotional reaction to that thing? What does it do instinctively to you at that emotional level? And just to kind of sit with that, just to notice it, to observe it, not to do anything with it at first. And then the second habit is to use the space between the stimulus and the response, which is, I think, is one of the habits of highly effective people, Stephen Covey's renowned book. But like, just putting that space between that reaction, that emotional reaction that you have, and the thing that you do as a result of it. So having observed it, you can choose what you do with it, how to process it. Maybe it's going to be a difficult conversation, like addressing things at the source. Maybe it's just, right, I need to take myself out of here, go for a walk, do some exercise, create something, or just have a chat with someone outside of that context. And then in the marketing context, you get to choose what you've learned from this experience, whether it's something that you're doing and you're feeling like, whoa, this doesn't quite feel right to me as a way of marketing or doing business, or an experience with, being marketed to. And I've had these kinds of things where you just feel like, oh man, you mentioned the kind of scarcity and the manipulation kind of stuff that comes through certain models. And you just feel that instinctive like repulsion to it, or like, I don't know. You just don't resonate with it.
You're like, I'm done with this. Unsubscribe.
Yeah, exactly. And it's at its most frustrating when it's for a product that you really want. And I've had this a few times where it's like, the marketing is almost getting in the way of me buying that thing, because I want the thing, but I'm being put off by the way it's being marketed to me.
It's almost like we want to reach out to them and say, guys, come on.
Yeah, exactly.
Catch up with, the way we do marketing today just doesn't resonate with clients anymore.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's that kind of part of the process is just like working out how you're going to respond. Like, what would I do differently to this? What will I do differently next time? How might I approach this in a way that fits me in a more kind of natural way? And it's kind of using all of those experiences, not as things to make us annoyed, but as just opportunities to learn and to, kind of mention that, starting within and going into yourself as a gentle marketing revolution thing. And it's all a part of that process.
I love that. And I would add, so one, it's, noticing your own feelings and deciding this doesn't work for me anymore. This is not aligned, or, on the receiving end, but also on the marketer end, then paying attention to your ideal client's feelings and saying, I'm no longer just addressing the left brain, which talks about, price and figures and kind of this left brain thinking benefits, but also how does that make my client feel? So really also, since we're talking about gentle marketers, we can assume that they also want to work with gentle souls, gentle rebels, right? And so also paying attention to what you put out and how you want your ideal clients to feel when they're reading your things. Because more and more, I think we're going towards this age where it's no longer just the left brain making decisions, but it's also the right brain saying, how does that make me feel? Maybe 10 years ago, we were kind of the exceptions, but it's going towards that more and more.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And yeah, just kind of embodying that whole part of the process of like experiencing what you're putting out through how it's being felt, how it's changing, or, kind of shifting a person emotionally. I can't remember. Was it you that was talking about how you, I think it was. It's in your book, isn't it? Where you talk about if you use scarcity tactics and you bring people in feeling inadequate and all of that kind of stuff into interacting with your business, then that is how they're going to interact with your product, with your service, with things from there on in. Right. And actually engaging people at a much more kind of in a gentle way, in a more kind of empathetic, compassionate way from the very word go through the marketing. You're going to have people coming into the business with a real, a spirit of expansion and growth and willingness to really engage at that level. That was you, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So this idea of not, pushing or convincing people to buy out of fear, because like you said, then you end up with these clients who are contracted. You used expansion. So that's exactly how they will feel. They will feel contracted and won't get the results that you're actually wanting them to get. And so it's like this vicious circle, because then you need to hustle and hustle and hustle over and again, over again.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's that almost that sense of, right, we've got to get them into the business as fast as possible through the marketing process. And then actually so often, and it's the case with a lot of my stuff, it's people's commitment to things over time that's going to make the biggest and the deepest transformation. So if you're looking for quick wins, then you're not going to find that necessarily through the process that you need to engage with for those deep transformational experiences. And so you've got, it's an uneven seesaw essentially, where you're bringing people in as fast as possible, and then they're going to expect quick results. But actually that's not the way that most good services work. It's about sort of engaging at a slower and more rhythmic and just better paced.
Exactly. Yeah. And I love your title, slow coach for gentle rebels. So exactly. And I think towards the end of the book, I kind of talk about that there might be a slow transition to gentle marketing, because also if you have trained your clients to, for that quick fix kind of quick results attitude, then these might no longer be your ideal clients. So it's a slow transition towards this other way of marketing.
Yeah, and that's a really important. Sorry, just to pick up on that, like it's a really important thing to reinforce for people who are making that transition to a different type of marketing, is the gentleness needs to kind of be at the heart of that transition, and with yourself as well, as you kind of change the way that you maybe kind of operate in that sense. It's gentleness needs to permeate and be through everything.
So true. And that probably has something to do with the third point of the 7 habits, which is allow yourself to care. And what I thought of here is also self-care, but tell us what you had in mind when you wrote that?
Yeah. Well, I'm not really sure, but I think to me, it's that sort of, connecting with your values and connecting with how they speak to you within the context of the world around you and other people and all that kind of stuff. And like, I think our care and our concern underpins our sense of purpose. And so, that's at the core, obviously, like in business, it's about so much more than money. It's about helping shift humanity in a better direction as far as you see it. And it's making that impact like step by step, little by little. And yeah, absolutely. I think the self-care element is a part of this as well, where if you're being rough with yourself or tough with yourself, or you're kind of beating yourself up because you're not in some place that you aren't, then that is going to be like, that's going to come out of your business, through your business. And I think that is at the heart of that scarcity stuff, where if we feel inadequate or like we are not like in the place we want to be, and that's kind of expressing itself in quite, I don't know, self-abusive ways, then that is going to show up through the entire business and through the relationships that we build with potential customers and that kind of stuff. And I always think, gentle marketing it's not I do this in order to like get more clients. It's I do this because it's who I am. And that, when that's at the heart of the way that we operate, that kind of expansion, that space that we've talked about is there. And that win-win-win idea that you talk about in the book, which, the win for ourselves, the win for our client, the win for the world. I think that's there, that's really important.
So really this allow yourself to care applies to all three of those wins, right?
Yeah.
It's exactly it. It's like, we care so much as gentle rebels. Sometimes the caring for ourselves is probably the hardest one. Speaking from experience and also from what I hear from clients, it's yes, I care so much to change the world and, for my clients, but let's not forget the self-care and really allowing ourselves to bring this who I am to the marketing that expresses the care, I think, the self-care too.
Yeah, really true.
What about number 4?
So number 4, take your focus deeper. I'm not sure this is the right title for that one. I think it's more about sort of like keying into the motivations, the things that drive you, like, and at those times then when it does feel like, things are really, we're slow here, like it's not really yielding the results that I'm hoping to see. When we're kind of rooted into why things matter, our motivations, the stuff that actually drives us at that deeper level, you can find that connection to why you're doing what you're doing, even if it's hard and slow and all that. And to come back to the tree, like the branch remains there even when it's being battered by the wind and the roots are growing deeper. Maybe you can't see it, and the wood's getting stronger at that point. And it's through those moments of, I don't know, stillness and almost stagnation, or it looks like stagnation, but when things look like they're stagnant, actually there's a lot going on beneath the surface. And I think
I'm smiling here because I'm thinking of our favorite word, the liminal space again. We talked about that before. That's exactly it. Right? That's where things are happening, even though they're on the surface not really happening.
Exactly. And it's that for the gentle marketer, it's that temptation to kind of feel that sense of like, nothing's happening. I'm going to like search online and find like the latest must do or the latest tool, the latest thing I've got to do. And then it's like, things were really working, but you couldn't see it. Yeah. And then you've taken yourself out of that context and, started something else, which maybe isn't, I don't know, the right thing to do. So yeah, that sense of just being aware of depth and being aware of that liminality, that liminal space, that kind of bridge between where you are and where you're going, and how that's not always obvious.
And then comes the doing. decide what you're going to do. That's number 5.
That's it. Yeah. Yeah. So it's the kind of connection to proactivity rather than reactivity. Yeah. Mm. And how I think there's probably 2 sides to it. There's the kind of having a real sense of a plan or a map that you follow, like not necessarily a kind of really detailed, rigid thing, but like knowing, okay, in this situation, this is what I would do, and just taking time to, I suppose, consider what you do in the face of challenges. This is massive at the moment, like living through the COVID pandemic and everything. Like there's a lot of uncertainty and a lot of challenge going on, and for small businesses as well. It's quite interesting to work with some and to see how they are kind of using the situation and asking, okay, what does this make possible? We can't function as we normally would, but what resources do we already have that we can use? How can we kind of use them to make something possible and to continue functioning? And then that's kind of versus I've seen businesses kind of diversify the nature of the business and spend a lot of money reacting to the situation and thinking and following other people and thinking, right, if I'm going to keep up, I've got to do this and they're doing that, and I've got to, and spending a lot of time, a lot of energy and a lot of money on things that take them away from the core of actually the business themselves. And I think that kind of works at that business level. It works at an individual level as well. If we're rooted in that those values, those boundaries and stuff that we've talked about, you kind of have that sense of the space, the margin around us, so that when we face those things that are unexpected, that are really difficult, that are stressful, you've got that time to say, okay, how do I want to respond to this, rather than I just need to do something.
Yeah. I think that the hard work is already done because you've worked on the being, and then the doing actually is much easier because you now, almost intuitively what needs to be done. And so it doesn't become like this huge to-do list where you feel like, oh my God, I have to do all these things. They just kind of come naturally. At least that's the message I really want to share with gentle marketing. Once you come from this place of, within and really knowing why you're marketing and what you're marketing, then the doing just comes naturally. And it's just like, oh, this is actually fun, and then I think the hard work really is not so much the doing. It's more on the being. And once that's clear, it becomes this nice balance. I come from the doing, and I learned the being. The doing is, to me, just the being. Like some other concepts talk only about the being, and then just wait and things will come. That's not how I personally see things. I still think there is some doing required, but it doesn't have to be like hardship. It doesn't feel like you can do things still in the flow, because now you know why you're doing them and you know how to be. And regarding what you said about, the crisis and all of that, I think if you come prepared and you have worked on all of these things, whatever pandemic comes our way, we're like, oh, this, I got this. Yes, it's, obviously it's not going to be maybe, the same level of income than previous years, but I know who I am. I don't feel like I'm attached, or my value is not in, respect to how much money I bring in. And so these are important concepts that if we don't have them, then we feel like we have to always do more in order to be more.
Yeah, that's such a good point. Such a good point. And it's quite a difficult thing to talk about, like the kind of idea of being, because it's very difficult to measure. And it's one of those things that I've become better at being aware of through kind of journaling, through looking back at, okay, and feeling like I'm interacting with this current situation differently to how I might have done 10 years ago.
Right.
And actually so the beingness is something that just sort of emerges, and you can't pin it down and measure it as like, yeah, well, I did that this many times, therefore I'm being better or whatever. Whereas doing is very measurable. You can say, I did this, I did that, I did whatever.
Yeah.
And as you say, it's when the doing comes out of the being, it's that kind of, I suppose, the considered, the plan, the map, the values that you're rooted in, the actions that feel good at that soul level. And it's like, no, I know that I am acting from a place of abundance and being,
right,
as opposed to reacting to whatever it is that's kind of the latest threat that's flying through the air.
All right, let's move on to point number 6 and then 7. What's 6?
Okay. 6, follow up with anyone else affected. So yeah, I mean, like, again, I don't know where this was when I first wrote it, but like rereading it now, like it really speaks to this idea of, like, you know, not jumping to conclusions about other people's, you know, motivations and backgrounds and desires in any given situation, to be compassionate, to assume the best, you know, just to not be consumed by judgmental rage that seems to kind of be very prevalent in the world at the moment. You know, just connecting at a human level, even, you know, who knows what the situation might be, but like in a marketing context, it's that kind of awareness that you're engaging with people. You're not engaging with numbers or demographics, even though, like, on your screen you see numbers, you see demographics, you see percentages, all this sort of stuff. Each of those numbers represents a real person. And the same, like, you know, we mentioned earlier, sort of being frustrated by the marketing methods of other people, and, you know, you just want to get in touch with them and say, like, don't do it like this, do it differently. And I'd say, like, if you deem it necessary to call them out on that, to do so in a human to human way. Like, I remember this was probably about 4 years ago, and I'd kind of dabbled with, like, launch, like the PLF, product launch formula stuff,
right,
which is like, has the scarcity marketing, like, threaded through it. And so I was engaging some of those techniques that felt very uncomfortable, I really didn't like, but trying to do so in a way that was true of my voice. But I remember getting an email from someone that was just, it was like scathing, and it just really tore me a new one. And it just felt absolutely horrible. And it made me realize, like, actually, like, when we're engaging with people, even if we really don't agree with their methods and stuff like that, to remember that actually it's a human on the other end who might be really affected by what we've said. And we can, you know, send a constructive and a creative email, or, you know, speak to someone at that more constructive level, which might be exactly what they need to hear. And I was thinking, you know, that obviously you work with a lot of people transitioning towards gentle marketing, or interested in what that means and stuff. And the worst thing we could possibly do is probably close down that space between the traditional marketing and this new way of marketing, because that might be exactly what they need to hear, and they've never heard before. It's like that, you don't have to do it that way. And that's exactly what I would have loved to have heard at the time, because and it could just turn you off completely, and it could destroy you. Yeah
That is so important, Andy. I think, really, to not use, you know, gentle marketing as now this thing where we're going to shame other marketing methods that are maybe, you know, according to our standards now, not as gentle. Because you just, you know, shared a story where you've been there. I shared many stories in the book where I've been there, and there's no shame in that. It's just like, it's part of the process almost. It's like, let me try if this works. And you probably instinctively knew, oh my God, that just doesn't feel completely right. But if this person would have told you, Andy, that really doesn't sound like your usual self, it's like, I really appreciated the other emails. This one doesn't feel as good. You would have had an open conversation around it, and that would have made you realize in a good way, oh, maybe this thing, I'm not going to use it anymore.
Yeah.
But to use this now as a shaming technique, where you're saying all this hype and kind of manipulation, if you're using that, then you're a bad marketer. That's really, really not the point of this transition. Because I also think, for some people, it still works, and that's how their business model works. So you can't just say, oh, now all of that, throw it in the garbage. You're not going to have any income for a year, but that's fine. You'll figure it out. So obviously there needs to be a gentle transition also. Like, how can you, bring in maybe some of the more gentle marketing things that feel gentle to you, while still having some of the, quick results, quick bucks income that you need in order to pay your bills.
Yeah, totally. Oh man, I wish it was you that sent that email to me. That would have felt a lot nicer. I was just sort of thinking, yeah, it kind of evoked shame in me, the email that I got, because it was all about it was about being an introvert, highly sensitive person, and it was kind of like, you are not a highly sensitive person because of this. And so it was like this core shaming thing. And at a level I knew, like, I wasn't comfortable, marketing in that way, but it was kind of like, well, I'm trying this because people are swearing by it. It's like, really, it's, building their businesses, and I care about my business. So therefore that's what I've got to do. Yeah. But yeah, if like to have got an email that's like, man, this doesn't sound like you. Sounds like you're sort of bending yourself out of shape in order to fit into this. Mm-hmm. That would have been really powerful. And yeah, if only you'd sent me that email. It knocked me. It did knock my confidence massively to the point where I think I'd cut the entire campaign then, right, and just wallowed around for a little while. So it was not constructive by any stretch of the imagination. But yeah, that kind of feeds into the seventh habit, which is recording your experiences. And we've touched on it a few times, but like just using everything as an opportunity to learn, and asking yourself questions like, okay, what has this experience taught me? What would I do differently if I did it again? Where did it feel good? Where didn't it feel so good? And just kind of constantly kind of going through that process of like, okay, picking things up, putting things down, and just seeing, again, in the marketing context, seeing everything as it's all experimenting. It's all a process of learning. Every effort you make is neither good or bad. It's just simply that stepping stone of expansion into who you are becoming as a business owner, as a marketeer. If it didn't feel so nice, just allow yourself to know that. And yeah, and I think, like, definitely since engaging with your work on the gentle marketing, like, I would be holding those kinds of emails that I've just talked about very differently now, and using them to learn from, and to listen to what my own voice is saying. Because I think that there was a degree of, I can't remember who says it, but it might be Julia Cameron, talks about criticism and how good criticism tells you something you already know, and you're like, yes, thank you. Thank you for telling me that. Yeah. When you just said your response to that email might have been, like, that would have been an open conversation, as you say, like, thank you you've given me permission to let go of this thing and to find a different route through this. So yeah, and I think we can do that on our own to some degree, like through, journaling, as I mentioned, and just being aware of experiences, what we've learned from them, and what we do differently.
Yeah, I think you're so right. And again, it's part of that slow process, because if you're expecting, just like your first launch to be like this massive thing because you've now followed, whatever recipe for success, then obviously, or most likely, you're going to be disappointed. So if, however, you see it as a learning experience, and this is just one of, however many, then it's a complete different feeling. And you come to it also with more joy because you don't have these expectations of, kind of following the guru's advice and making the $1 million immediately after your first thing. So recording your experiences and, like you said, paying attention to what was fun and joyful and repeating those things again. Really, yeah, I think that's so true. Now, you wrote this post 5 years ago. Anything you would add today that we haven't already? We've covered so much.
We have covered a lot. Yeah, I think I might go back and change some of the titles, but I don't know. I think the idea of bowing to things is something I think is at the heart of gentleness. I've been thinking about a lot recently, and just, the greeting of a bow, which we don't really do in the West, but it's kind of an Eastern greeting a lot of the time.
Since COVID, we're doing it a bit more.
We're doing it a lot more, and I'm very grateful that the handshake is on its way out, because I'm not a big fan of the handshake anyway. But the idea of bowing to everything, to anyone, as a way of showing your willingness to learn, and what is this going to teach me, and what is this experience going to teach me? Just like that image of the branch bowing and moving in the wind, and I think I'd put something in about that. Not sure what, but it just feels like a good foundation to just come towards any relationship, any experience. And then the only other thing is just reinforcing that sense of how we hold other people, and the awareness of the energy that we bring to interactions, and the spirit with which we engage with the world and with other people, and kind of coming with that sense of expansion rather than contraction. I was listening to a podcast just before Christmas with Fran Healy, the frontman of the band Travis, was on with Adam Buxton, talking about this idea of tasting other people in situations where in a traffic jam, or you cut someone up in traffic or whatever, and you taste other people when you get their rage, like road rage, or just those fleeting encounters that we have in everyday life, and how sometimes you get a taste in your mouth and you're like, oh, that's disgusting. And just being aware that actually what we do with that taste, because a lot of the time we might just hold that without realizing, oh, I'm tasting that other person and it's really disgusting. We might go and pass that on to somebody else without being aware of it, without thinking about it. And just, I think gentleness is that awareness of what we're tasting from other people, the energy that we're receiving from people, the energy we're putting out to people, and the way that all of that kind of interacts. And it's kind of the responsibility that we have for that from our own perspective, rather than just blaming. I think we're very good at blaming people and saying, well, I'm feeling like this because they have given it to me. And actually just being like, yes, that person did make me feel like that tasted disgusting when I got cut up in traffic this morning, but now I'm going to choose what I do with that. Might be, walk it off, dance it off, create something, talk to someone, just air, so much of the time, just airing something by speaking it out loud is enough to make it dissipate as a feeling. And that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I like this idea of tasting, and to me, it kind of also makes me think of the energies that we are giving out, right? And to kind of wrap it up with the marketing and business, how we feel and what the energy that we feel, we obviously also give to our ideal clients or even prospects. And so if we feel constricted, and if we feel this, scarcity, then that's also what we're putting out there, and our clients are going to feel that as well. So being gentle with ourselves in order to feel better, I think will also be reflected in our marketing and business.
Yeah, absolutely.
This has been such a delight to talk to you as always, Andy. Please do share where people can find you and how you work with people as a slow coach for gentle rebels.
Yeah, sure. I mean, best place to find me is my website, andymort.com. And yeah, I'm on social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube are the main ones. And yeah, I do kind of got a variety of things I do. So one-to-one coaching with people. Yeah, Gentle Rebel Creative Shift coaching, where I know slow coach is often used as an insult, which it's kind of a brave thing to put on my site as what I am. But yeah, it's again that kind of that rebellious thing against the kind of urgency and the busyness that we are so often drawn into in the modern world. And I think pace and rhythm are really at the heart of gentleness, and kind of just finding that gentle, intentional, steady beat at the heart of our lives that is our natural pace can be the root of massive shifts that can occur in our lives and in our businesses over time. And so, yeah, help people on a one-to-one basis do that. And then also I run a membership community called The Haven, the-haven.co, which is, kind of ongoing courses, community, and we look at 9 themes each year. And so again, that idea of seasonal cycles and tree growth and that kind of stuff is at the heart of the way I structure that, where we kind of go into the same themes year on year, and the kind of rooting and the growth happens and builds, and that's the kind of heart of that. Yeah. So
I love that. Like most memberships, it's like, how much content can you stuff in there? And, more is better. And oftentimes people just feel completely overwhelmed with all the options. So I love your focus on just nine themes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, Andy. I feel so privileged to have had this chance to talk to you and have you on during this Random Acts of Kindness week. Thanks so much.
Oh, it's wonderful, Sarah. Thank you so much for inviting me. It's been lovely.
Thank you. I hope you enjoyed this other conversation around kindness and got some inspiration, maybe a few things you can change to take it slower in 2021. Please check out Andy's website at andymort.com, as well as his Gentle Rebel podcast. 3 more things before you leave. Again, I think by now you know that my recent book, The Gentle Marketing Revolution, is the sponsor and kind of the, typically introverted behind the scenes star of this special week about kindness. So if any of the things that we discuss here on this podcast or during this special week resonates with you, I'd love for you to get the book over at Amazon.com or thegentlemarketingrevolution.com/book. It's also on that page that you'll find tons of resources if you buy the book, but I'll tell you right now, they're also available if you don't buy the book. So just go over there, see if it resonates, and then yes, if you do buy the book, then you get an extra bonus star from me. The second thing is that every day I'm also sharing 2 random acts of kindness that you could try out. So these come from the randomactsofkindness.org website, where they have amazing resources around this topic of random acts of kindness. One of them being a workplace calendar with basically a daily invitation for kindness. And so today's random acts of kindness are: first, use the phrase, "I haven't thought about it like that before," more often. So I love this phrase because it basically invites you to have different opinions. And then you, instead of going rah, 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 you pause and say, "I hadn't thought about it like that before." So I'm going to try to practice that in my most closest relationship, and that's with Tony, my husband. So let's see how that goes. The second random act of kindness would be: remind your kids how proud you are of them. And then if you don't have kids, tell your team members how much you appreciate them, or your partners, or whomever it might be. but sharing appreciation is so kind and so appreciated from the others as well, right? And then the third thing, finally, in order to apply for the free year-long Gentle Business Circle membership, please leave me a voice message at sarahsanacroce.com/ask and tell me why you'd like to join the circle and why you'd like to be considered. And if you haven't don't know the details about the circle, you can always go check it out at sarahsanacroce.com/circle. And I'm giving away one free membership each day during this week. And the first message I'll get wins. So don't forget to leave me also your name and email so that I can actually contact you. Thank you so much for tuning in today. You'll find the show notes with all the links at sarahsanacroce.com/GBR77. And tomorrow I'm back with an interview with one of the co-founders of the amazing randomactsofkindness.org website, the lovely Brooke Jones. So I really hope to connect with you again tomorrow. Let's be the change we want to see in the world. Speak soon.